thank you again for like making the time to do this. I'm so happy to get to talk to you again.
Of course, I
I've
was
got my
there.
poster.
Hey!
I had to for this, of course. But yeah, it's really nice to talk to you. And I just wanted to like, I guess, start by checking in because the last time we spoke, you were just living your life, getting ready to work on your film, and then global upheaval, things that are totally out of your control. And now we're here. So I just want to know like how you're doing and where your head's at as like an artist and a person.
Well, I think, and I want to get ahead of everything and say this is my privilege to say, but I think that in the very beginning, when self-quarantining was becoming imperative and everyone was beginning to lock themselves down and be really safe, I think that there was this chatter amongst a few of my artist friends that this would be a hopeful, positive time, as long as we weren't sick, to reevaluate, work, think, read, watch, meditate, slow down, stop being so industry obsessed, stop being so self-obsessed about our work, and find inspiration elsewhere and not just be chasing meetings and chasing phone calls. And I have to say, it was that for me. Like I did have a moment where I was like, oh my God, I'm just waking up and reading and like calming down and following muses and trying to stay away from the news and releasing myself into what was happening in the world and not trying to be in control of everything, sort of giving into global fear, global sadness, and like move slower. So I'm doing okay, but now that the industry is sort of back and people are back to shooting and movies are back and slowly TV shows are coming back in July, it's a little bit like tiptoeing in. We're all frightened, but we're also all missing it so badly, and it is a kind of a reason to live a little bit. So it is like we all need that back, the people that do care so much about it. So I'm excited to go back while also being paranoid.
Yeah. You were saying that you were trying to like just keep writing. So what's that been like?
It's the only thing you can actually do by yourself that still gives you that satisfaction, that artistic satisfaction. And I don't paint, but I mean, if I did, I would be, painting. I mean, just anything you can do without your collaborators is a gift, because most of the time when you're on a film set, it's like, it's about human bodies. It's about multiple people. It's about the full experience. And so when you take away all the human bodies, kind of what's left, and you're like, at least I write. I have something to do.
Yeah.
So I've been writing a lot.
Do you have like a process, or are you just kind of like, what's writing a script like for you?
Yeah, I don't write in the morning and I don't write at night. I'm no good at either time. Like, I'm no good in the morning because I'm just like foggy and I want things to come in slowly and I want them to come out slowly. I'm sort of like tripping over myself in the morning. And then at night, I want to like be like the rest of the world, and I want to be like, I'm off now. I'm enjoying my real life. I'm not going to let myself go 24 hours around the clock. So it took me years to realize that, because I would be writing all the way to midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. sometimes. And I have to sometimes tell myself I'm a human and I have to like stop. So yeah, I try to like load up on coffee in the morning, and then during the daytime when everyone's getting like lethargic and slow, I'm like zooming. I'm going, But the truth is, like, I give in, and I sort of believe in the tenet that you just have to write a little bit every day, and you have to read, and you have to watch. And if you're not physically writing, you have to do the other parts of writing, which is interacting with your art form. So that can be anything really. You can be reading books and you can be going to museums and you can be watching other people's films, but you kind of have to like fill your brain with really exciting stuff so that you can feel exalted, so that you want to get back to the writing. You kind of, even if you're taking a break from the physicality of it, you can't take a mental break, especially if you're in the middle of a script. You have to stay vivid, stay present, stay alive, stay aware, and not just watch bad TV. Unless TV is helping you, which is possible. It's possible.
That's really nice that you have those boundaries for yourself, though. I feel like, especially as a writer, with a lot of artists, I think there's like kind of, we like to get into sort of gross mythology of like, that it's somehow like this amazing noble task to like kill ourselves for our art and to like overwork ourselves and exhaust ourselves, you know? So,
well, I had a friend a long time ago, a really good close friend who was a great writer, and she woke up at 5:30 every morning, and she made a pot of coffee every morning, 7 days a week. Woke up at 5:30 in the morning, made a pot of coffee, drank it, started writing. She sat beneath a cork board and she put tiny notes like on the cork board. I was so jealous. I can't even tell you. I was angry at her, rageful, jealous, envious. I was like, fuck, like I'm just doing it wrong. I'm doing it wrong. But everybody has a different thing that they need to do. And my work would have been really shitty at 5:30 in the morning. It just wouldn't have been as like potent, and it wouldn't have been thoughtful. It would just be like messy, mushy mess. And also, dying for your art is a real that's a real dead end, you know, because then you're done, and so is the art. So you do have to feed yourself as a human soul as well as an artistic soul. You have to figure out the balance, or else you'll just go nuts. You will go nuts.
So what kind of stuff other than writing have you been doing in quarantine to kind of keep yourself sane? Like you were talking about watching things, reading things.
Yeah, I have a treadmill. So because I'm a runner, so I run every day, miles. So that's like one of the things I do every day to like help keep me real. And then I watch a lot of shit. I mean, I watch so much stuff. I watch much stuff. And I read a lot. I've started reading like weird unauthorized biographies of like trashy human beings so that I can like, I don't know, get this sense of voice because of this thing I'm working on now. I'm reading like the unauthorized biography of Danielle Steele. Do you know who she is?
I know the name. Why do I know the name?
Like a very like over the top romance novelist, and she started in the late 70s, and she's written like 75 romance novels, and they're all garbage, if I can say that. But that's the kind of garbage that you're fascinated by. And her life is a crazy mess. And I started reading this book about her, and it's been so inspiring. Like I want to write a character like that. So I'm just reading a lot and trying to sleep a lot and pet my dog and like stay away from the news. Just stay in the news. It's not good for me personally. For some people can handle it and they want to see all the brutal videos and they want to see pundits fighting and they want to see our president make a fool of himself, and I'm just like not interested.
Yeah.
I know making a fool of himself, I don't need to physically see it with my eyes, you know, because it creates like vitriol in me. It makes me feel sour acid. So I just stay away.
I guess I'm kind of the same. That sounds healthy.
Yeah.
I want to kind of get to Paris Window and the other short films that are screening, that will have been screened by the time this interview is being shown for Static Vision. But kind of broadly, I was thinking about like how you've had quite a long music career before you were even making films, and you have like a lot of input on the kind of sonic landscape of your films. And I want to hear about like that relationship for you, the relationship between film and music, because it's clearly so significant in like all of your work.
Well, I've had the experience, and maybe you have too, so many times of watching something that you love. You love the content and you love the context. And then you hear the score, the soundtrack, and it's such a turnoff. It's so bad. You know, it's like bad acoustic guitar, singer-songwriter. You're, what the hell is this? Or it's like weepy violins, and it's a mess, you know. And I have a huge aversion to bad scoring, and I think it can really ruin the full picture. And I really care about the energy I put into post, making sure the sound design and score elevates the film and creates the tension, the paranoia, the suspense, like does what it's meant to do for the genre that I work in, which I think it helps me eons. Like you can create tension with actors, but they're in dead space, you know? The music is what is driving them toward this fracture, driving them toward that cracking. And the audience is sensing their emotion even more heightened when the music is right. So it's just my number one goal that I set out, to make sure that the music is as thrilling and pulsing, if not more so, to head the work in that direction and to, you know, manipulate the audience in the best way possible and not turn them off, like excite them and force them to lean in toward it rather than to be turned off by it. So I really only ever want to work with great artistic, soundscaping, aesthetic weirdos who are going to give me something really fresh that no one else has. It's just my goal. And especially with Paris Window, Ben is such an interesting and amazing composer. And I knew that I could give him a ton of random words that were just like feelings and emotions, and he would be able to put them into like a sonic space. And so he did that for me. I would call him and be like, it's like when you're watching TV in the 90s and an infomercial comes on, and it's not the music for the infomercial, but it's the music in between infomercial. He'd be like, I get it. I totally get it. You know, he's like able to mind read like that. And then everything he gave me, I really loved. So I was just so happy with his music.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice. And being a musician yourself, experiencing being a performer, whether it's in music videos or being on stage, like, has that affected how you direct performers in your work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps me really understand vanity. I hate to say it, but it's kind of true. It's like the need to perform and look good while you're performing, and how that's an insecurity, and what it feels like to look ugly for a moment, because that's what's best for the character and their performance. And I do know what the camera gaze feels like. It's intense, and it makes me an empathetic person toward actors for sure. But also it helps me with movement and making dance music and being a part of dance for so long. The dance scene and the acid scene, the house scene, and like the weirdo beat scene. I'm just really compelled to bodies moving and a sense of choreography. So that's really made a big stamp on my work too, is like movement between actors and going from stillness to overt chaotic movement.
So on that, let's talk about Sin Ultra, because I feel like that's very much that vibe, and it's a lot of just like people moving and driven so much by that choreography. So tell me about that film and where it came from.
Well, I was up against some real like real dumb career hurdles, like, you know, waiting for certain big projects to go and having them postpone or move around. And I just felt that itch. I really wanted to make something so badly, and I wanted to pay for it myself. I didn't want to wait for anyone to support it or accept it. I wanted to move forward. I basically wanted to greenlight myself and not, you know, apologize later. You know, like not ask anyone and just be my own producer. And when I realized, looking at a budget, that the most expensive thing on my set was always my sound person, I was like, oh, can I make something without location sound? Can I create something that's more of a silent film? And for me, there's just no way I could make a true silent film. So all of a sudden I was like, well, it must be a dance film then. And it should be a film where all of the actors are acting out the plot through dance and movement. And this was sort of like my line of thinking. And as soon as I recognized I was going to take out dialogue, which is, I think, my strong suit and where I feel most comfortable, I was like, okay, it's time to sort of jump into the least comfortable thing, which is actors expressing themselves without any words. How I was going to do that. And so I started to think about, and this is so odd, but I was meditating one day on the idea of all of these female bodies, these dead female bodies that pile up in horror movies, like these half-naked, unclothed, lingerie-clad, gorgeous, long-lived, naked women. And if we put all of those bodies in a pile, we would have a most disturbing sight of all time. If we could just take like the 20th century and the 21st century's discarded, naked, dead women, slashed to pieces and put them in a pile, we would all stand back and be like, oh, this is a problem. So I just started thinking about like a factory in my mind that toe tags these bodies. And it's an esoteric idea and a very odd sort of delight, but I knew some people who would sort of go along with that idea, and we would build a set of cardboard and we would create this odd factory, and I had just the right music for it, a sort of like bumper kind of vapor wavy music, and one idea just sort of rolled into the next from there. It was like a pure art project, like pure craft, just crafting it together, painting, cutting, and everyone's wearing my clothes, and we did our own makeup, and it's just very hands-on, handsy experience.
Was it scripted? Like, do you write a script for something like that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you have to tell the actors what they're doing, and you have to express to your cinematographer like how story moves on, and express to your editor what you want it to inevitably feel like. So you write like a few pages of what it is, but there's no, dialogue, so there's no traditional script. But with the actors, it was more like, just act like this right now. I think they had no sense of what they were in for and no sense of what would come out. And they were still willing to do it. So lucky me,
Yeah. Well, speaking of your collaborators, actually, I want to ask about Noel David Taylor, who's in Paris Window, in Requests, in Sin Ultra, and a bunch of your other stuff. So obviously a long-time collaborator. And I want to hear about just like how you guys met and what that relationship's like working together.
We met through a friend, and Noel is he's a very odd and interesting, bizarre and specific filmmaker in his own right, and a person who makes odd comedy videos and stars in them and wears costumes. And I mean, he's sort of like a Renaissance person in his own work. He will write, direct, build the set, do his own makeup, do his own costumes, glue a beard on his face, and play multiple roles. So I was just always enchanted by that. And when we met, I was very much the opposite. I was a very straightforward writer, and I didn't want to even really direct that much. I really just wanted to do the thing that I do best. And he was very inspiring in that way, and helpful as a collaborator to remind me that if you want to make something, you should just go make it. And you should get your hands dirty and play all of the parts, really, and do as much as you possibly can to get your aesthetic and your visuals across. And you don't need to give up your taste or, your like level of style to somebody else who doesn't know what you want. You can start saying, okay, I have a vision, and maybe we do it ourselves, and maybe we make it ourselves, and maybe we hire people who are going to truly fulfill that vision. So that's our collaboration was so much about being hands-on and crafty and not waiting for acceptance, but just rolling forward with it. And he's a great actor too, and I love directing him. He's so fun.
He's I've had like a little look at his stuff and his website, and I see a lot of weird comedy on it. And I'd love to hear more about that and like what draws you to comedy.
I don't think I could ever be like a pure comedy writer. It's hard to write a joke. It's deeply, deeply hard to know what is going to make someone else laugh. But I think about that so seriously. When I was younger, I loved Saturday Night Live. I loved Adam Sandler. I loved Jim Carrey. Like as a teenager, I had the most fun in life laughing. And I think that stays with you even as you become a more serious artist. That desire to take yourself so seriously is something that has to happen. Like your early 20s, your mid 20s, your late 20s, sometimes for the rest of your life, you just want to take yourself so seriously. You want your work to be taken seriously. You want your work to be serious. But I think that hints of irony and wit and humor are the best way to get across your theme and your meaning. I think making a person laugh because they relate to something or they find the relatability in it, I think that's just an elevation of your work. So I really love characters who are funny, people who are funny. So even though I don't write straightforward jokes, I'm so interested in like a chuckle here and there because I think it makes the world fuller when I'm creating it. I mean, I think David Lynch does that too. And I do see that in Cronenberg, and I see it in a lot of people whose work is dreamlike and has the quality of like ephemera. They know inherently how funny it is to be a human, how ridiculous it is. And I think ridiculousness is important to think about. I've watched a lot of movies that are so good, but they're so upsetting. And I don't know that I want to be a part of that. I have respect for it, but I don't know if I want to challenge people, but I don't think I want to upset them. And I think that the levity and the jokes that are minor and slight, I think that helps to stay away from just truly devastating anybody, which I don't want to do really.
So when you're writing moments of levity or moments of absurdity, how much of what you're writing is just about amusing yourself? So for you, is it about what amuses you, or are you thinking about the audience?
I mean, I love amusing myself. I think that's my first goal. Like if I'm writing something and I'm like, then I'm having the best time, And then I think that it translates to other people. I recently wrote a script for hire, and it had to be kind of funny. And every day I would be like, is it funny? Is it funny? Like just killing myself over the joke. And then I gave it to someone to read, and they were laughing, and I was so happy. I was so, it was so difficult. And I do think amusing yourself is part of what keeps you going back to the art. Like if I didn't have fun and I didn't have a sense of play, I think I would have an animosity toward writing because it's so difficult and it's so brain blearing and brain mushing and bleeding. And so you want to give your whole self to it, and you also want to feel like you're playing at the same time and not just painfully forcing words out of your brain. So definitely amusement is a huge part of what I do. And I hope that I amuse other people too. Like I hope that they see some amusement in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do. I do. I find it very fun. I have a question about Paris Window that's actually from a friend, because this isn't live, so we can't do a live Q&A, but I watched a film with a friend of mine recently, and she sent in this question. Her name's Eliza, and she says, in Paris Window, the trippy self-help TV show is really goofy and heightened, but it also has an obvious power over the characters. I want to know if Amanda considers herself more of a skeptic or a believer in spiritual zany stuff.
Eliza. Okay, well, when I was a kid, I think I mentioned this before. I just mentioned this with Ben, but when I was a kid, after maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, television, certain channels would just become infomercials. And the infomercials would be selling all ranges of things. And there'd be like a number flashing on the bottom of the screen. And a lot of times it would be psychic hotlines. And a lot of times it would be a range of like tarot readers and people who could see the future. And I would stay up all night watching these and just become completely involved in it. I mean, I was like, they'd be saying the same thing over and over again. It would almost be like a tape on a loop, but they would be like, call now, your future is in your hands. It'd be all these like mottos and slogans. And I found it to be, I mean, I never believed, so I don't think I'm a believer, but I'm not a skeptic in that I believe that it helps people. And I believe that it's like a cosmic connection for people who are looking for something. And I love the idea of that. I love the idea of needing something bigger, weirder, stranger, out of your own realm, to help you or save you or to feel connected to. And I felt the power of those infomercials. Even though I didn't necessarily believe that any of those people were psychics, I still was like hypnotized by it and pulled in. So I think maybe a little bit of both, a believer and a skeptic.
Yeah, that's interesting. It kind of makes me think about like, I feel like when people talk about placebos as like being fake, like if it works, then it's not really fake. You know, it's a strange kind of thing.
Absolutely. Whatever works.
Yeah.
Whatever works. And I do think that there's something beautiful about the cosmos and the universality as a substitute for religion, because I do think that astrology's never hurt anyone like God has hurt people. You know, like gods against other gods and religions against other religions. And I think looking to the stars, looking to your sign, looking to another power, that's just a healing thing. And I believe in that as far as needing a higher power. Like that to me is a way more potent and epic thing than, you know, fearing God, which I just I'm not into. But I also just like the imagery of psychics. And I love palm reader visuals. Like I love being outside of a palm reader and just the way that certain things have become adopted, like the neon signs and all of the accoutrement. I think just aesthetically it's so fascinating. So I'm really compelled to that too.
You've talked a bit, you've like mentioned the word meditate. Do you like meditate?
No, I everyone tells me that I should. I use it as the verb of like to think upon. I don't really do anything like that. Someone a few years ago tried to get me into crystals, and they bought me a lot of crystals. And I would sit and I would hold the crystal and I would think and I would be like, okay, and I would feel some engagement with it. So I can't say, like, again, I can't say it wasn't working. It just wasn't for me. I have that more of like a nerd, and really the only thing that works for me are books and studies, you know, which is just that's my own connectivity. But I've been moved and hypnotized by that, so you know, same feeling, just a different avenue.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about requests a little bit because it's like one of my favorites of your shorts, and I find it really funny. And weirdly, I was reading a book a little while ago. I was reading Cassavetes on Cassavetes, and
that book.
There's a section in it where he says, when two people fall in love, it erases everything that's gone before. Love is the great eraser, which someone says, like, were you quoting him in your film? Was that what that was?
You know what's so weird is I wrote that down. This is so funny. I wrote that down when I read it, and I put it in like a notes section of something, like note to self, like this is an amazing thing. Did not attribute it to him. Did not write anything. Notes, right? And when I was going to write the lyrics, I was looking through notes, and I had notes on the short on the same page, and I saw Love is the Great Eraser, and I was like, I mean, I knew I didn't think of it, obviously. But I was like, I don't remember what that is, but I'm putting that in. And so then later, of course, I was like, oh my God, it's the Cassavetes thing. So yes, quoted him in that Love is the Great Eraser. I love that book. And I think all of his tenets of filmmaking are to be just studied and exemplified, because he's the epic, like, do-it-yourself filmmaker. But yeah, that is a line from that book.
That's so wild, yeah. Because I read it and I was like, I feel like I've heard that, and I couldn't remember.
saying that to me before. Yeah. It's Cassavetes. I do actually, I will admit, I do really like quoting people in my work. I think it's actually really like a cool way to secretly wink at other fans of things. And there's a lot of things that Marilyn Monroe has said or people have said about her that I've quoted before. Um, she's just one of the odd people who says some really iconic stuff in interviews that I'm like, I'm putting that in something. So I'm sure someone one day will be like, didn't Marilyn Monroe say that? And I'll have to be like, she did. That was not me. That was Marilyn.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to like comb Paris Window and your other films again, try and figure out all the sources.
The little Easter eggs, yeah.
Um, well, I think we can probably wrap it up soon, but before we do, I just do want to ask a bit more about Cassavetes while we're on him, because I'm interested in like your relationship to his work and what you've learned from him and when you first encountered his stuff.
Well, I think I saw my very first Cassavetes film when I was 13. I was a freshman in high school, and I saw A Woman Under the Influence, which was way above and beyond my understanding or capacity to understand at that age. The intensity of that and of her performance, I just was totally drawn in, and I started watching a lot of his movies. And at that age, just I totally missed every message. It really was not. I don't think he's necessarily for teenagers. He's punk, so I think teenagers are compelled to him, and he's sort of like just innately a rebel. So obviously, young filmmakers want to embody that spirit, but what he has to say about life is so nuanced that I really don't think until you're an adult and you've had your heart broken and you've been in love and you've lost a job and you've lost a best friend, like I think really it's adult, it's truly adult material, which is a long lost art form. Actually, to be truly adult now is not really that common. But I love how he works with actors, and that's mainly what I look up to him for, is the way that he's able to get performances out of actors where they step outside their own skin and they give him wild and maniacal performances. And I love all of his movies. I'm especially invested in Love Streams and Opening Night and Husbands, which I know is a very chaotic and anti-female movie, but I just find that story to be vicious and wicked and wonderful. So I really love his work. When I was also young and I got really into Le Tigre, and their very first album, they have a song, "What's Your Take on Cassavetes?"
Oh, yeah.
And Hannah yells, "Genius, misogynist, genius." And I think I think both are right. I definitely think he's a misogynist, but I also think he's a genius. So he's worth looking into, and definitely being moved by his work is really, it's an exciting thing for someone who makes movies, because he proves that you don't need car chases and helicopters and flashy shit, and you don't need tons of money, and you don't need huge stars. You just need great actors who are super committed and great writing that's from the heart. So I think that he's just an influential character for that reason alone, that he didn't wait for acceptance either, that he took control and he worked really closely with actors and gave them respect. So I'm a huge fan.
Well, I think genuinely that I think you're someone who really like carries that same kind of rebellious energy, and you like describe yourself as a film radical, and just like the difference between kind of vaguely wanting to be rebellious and actually explicitly saying that you really give a shit and you really want artists to be liberated is such a huge difference and really significant. Like, I really appreciate you saying those things and caring about them so fiercely, because it makes a difference to other artists. It really does.
Ivana, I really think honestly that there's a huge difference between making art and just being creative. And a lot of us are creative and a lot of us are creators and we create. But to really be an artist and to really enjoy art and to take part in art, you do have to throw a middle finger up sometimes, because the best art in the world has come at times where the most adversity is being hurled at the artist. And our industry is nonstop hurtling of adversity, whether it's because you're a woman or whether it's because you're a POC or whether it's because you're not someone who went to the right film school or you're a weirdo. You're facing that all the time. It's the great leveler. It really is. It's like you're either in or you're out. And if you're out, you look around and sometimes you're like, you guys are the coolest people ever.
Mm.
The outside of the club is cooler than inside of the club. And so I think being subversive and going for it in that way is just it's the only thing. There's just nothing else. There's enough commerce out there. There's Disney. As long as Disney, everyone's fine. Now there can be some weird stuff, you know? No one says that Marvel has to go away, and no one says that Fast and Furious has to go away. All of that can exist. It's just I'm pushing for something else too in the running next to it to expand minds and to show people that weirdness is like relatable, just as relatable as non-weirdness. Obviously, it's the 20th century, you know, and a lot of weird stuff happens. Love other filmmakers who are doing that, so I got to do it myself too.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that, and thank you for sharing your films with us. I'm really happy that we're getting to screen them, and happy that I got to talk to you again. It's always really good to talk to you.
It's so good to talk to you. I really hope everyone liked the movies, and if anyone ever has any questions or wants to write me, my email address is on my website, so send me a letter. I'll write back. I really will.
Beautiful. Email Amanda. Okay, thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.